start already?
No, we're about to.
We're running a little bit late. Okay?
You just put on this so far? Okay. And that's it, right, Mom?
Good morning, Gedolim and Kinamado, everyone. Welcome back. Our famous Lyman Elbaz Shlita.
Thank you. Thank you, Minash. I need you to come with me to more shows. I like the way you welcomed me so warmly. Welcome, everybody. It is a pleasure to be here. Is that too high the screen, or is it just fine? Okay. One time I didn't have a screen, and I came to a place to do a show, and I didn't know what to do. There was no wall, because everything had pictures. So I told them, let's do it on the ceiling. I had no choice. I did the show on the ceiling, and everyone's sitting the whole time at the ceiling. Afterwards, everyone couldn't move their neck. They're like, my neck. Can you imagine for like an hour staring at the ceiling like they're stiff? Okay, thank you, Rabbi Boylan, for always being such a tzaddik of a mensch. And I hear we have some of the finest and most wonderful and beautiful people of Klal Yisrael here today. So clap for yourselves, please. Okay, great. Today's presentation that Torah shows brought to Harmony Services is about giants. Is anyone here scared of a giant? Yeah. No, I'm not talking about giants of physical presence like Og Melech HaBashan. I'm talking about giants of spirit. Today we're going to be hearing amazing facts, stories, and quotes from about 100 great sages, leaders, Rabbanim, great Torah scholars, and each one of them should be for us a role model. You know, sometimes you go to someone's house, you can right away see who they admire. I had one student, I went to visit him, and his room was Mickey Mantle, Brooks Robinson, Michael Jordan. And I said, these are your heroes? I mean, these teach you how to exercise. Maybe they're your exercise teacher, but that shouldn't be your hero. Should be people who serve Hashem day and night. Now, this year, the Bnei Yisrael got pretty lucky because, to everyone's surprise, a video was found of the Chafetz Chaim. And you know what? People were so excited. Raise your hand if you saw that video clip. The Chafetz Chaim. Maybe remind me at the end to show it for those who didn't. To see a giant of 100 years ago walking, even for just Daled Amos, made us appreciate, wow, we are connected to those leaders who are connected to Har Sinai, who are connected to Hashem. Unfortunately, lately, a number of great tzaddikim, great Gedolim, great rabbis have passed away. I'm sure your teachers, your friends can share with you some thoughts. Today, I will try my best to provide for you a little light in this dark gullus. We're going to share stories of great mention like the Chazon Ish. Do you know the Chazon Ish used to learn Torah every night until he dropped? You know, some people, I'm too tired, I can't learn Torah. The Chazon Ish, they say, sometimes he was found on the floor of his apartment, his house. What's he doing on the floor? He learned Torah till he had enough energy to get to his bed, and then he realized, no, I didn't have enough energy to get to the bed. It's these tzaddikim that push themselves to the limit that make them those great Gedolim. We're going to learn about Hasidic Rebbes. Like the time the Satmar Rebbe, Rabbi Yoel Teitelbaum, said, everyone in the yeshiva has to collect money for poor people. So one mother said, excuse me, I don't want my son collecting money. People are going to think he's a schnar. And you know what? The Rebbe told her, in Olam Haba, you're going to want one day your son to walk around the way you get shoes in Olam Haba. You know you get shoes? You don't go to the shoe store. If Hashem saw in your life you went with your shoes to help others, then you'll have shoes in Olam Haba. And that was a big lesson. So we can learn from these Gedolim how to learn more Torah and do more chesed. As a matter of fact, the Gemara tells us what merit will protect us in the future when Mashiach comes. If there's a war, The Gemara says people who are careful to learn Torah and do chesed. Do you know, Reb Aaron Leib Steinman, when he was a young bacher, they say he wouldn't sleep in his bed too much. He would stay in the Beis Medrash, and when it was time to fall asleep, he put his head down on the stender. We don't relate to people who love Torah so much, but we also love Torah. So maybe we can learn from them to try to go the extra page every time you learn Torah. You light up the world. You might not see that light, but it sure brings light and blessing to the world. Rabbi Boylan wasn't sure which show to do, and we went through the list. I think Rabbi Boylan has had almost every Torah show of mine already. He is definitely a frequent flyer with me, and I appreciate him. But today, we chose the Gedolim Yisrael show simply because in the time of the Omer, we actually lost 24,000 Gedolim. We lost the students of Rabbi Akiva, who were Gedolim. There was the tiny flaw in the character that maybe they didn't show enough honor for younger students, other students, and that's why we're going to try to learn from our Gedolim. We'll learn about the Rav, the Mashgiach, the Rebbe, and the Rosh Hashiva. In a sense, you could compare them to the lions of Klal Yisrael. Just like everyone recognizes a lion is a king, these are like the kings. When a child goes to Cheder, the dream of every single Rebbe and parent is that one day this child will grow up to be a virtuous person. And that's why many students collect pictures of rabbis. Girls can collect pictures of Rebbitzins. Put it by your bed. I just saw in the bookstore a big picture of Rebbitzin Kanievsky for sale. She devoted her life to caring for others. What a role model. There are many stores that sell stickers of Gedolim. That allows you to make a collection. When I was a kid, I used to collect baseball cards. But then one day, I grew up, I became bar mitzvah, and I gave my baseball cards away to a friend named Ben Sion. And I said, you know what? Let's find real heroes to learn from. Not just people that hit a ball all day long. My son Avram loves to take pictures of Gedolim. And you know, it's funny. I take his pictures that he takes, and when I teach in yeshiva, any student who behaves during class gets a check. If they ask a good question, they get a check. Once they get 5 checks, they can have a picture of a gadol. The gadol is like the shepherd of the sheep, like the warm fire that brings light in the night, like the well where we can drink water from. He's like the grandfather, the malach, that special king who worries about his people. He prays for them. He guides them. He shows them right from wrong. In some towns, they even have a village like Skvir, where the Rebbe made rules for our village. You know, one rule they made in Skvir town is that whenever you build a house, you have to make sure there's an extra room for guests. Can you imagine that? They made another rule in Skvir town. Boys walk on one side of the street, girls walk on the other side of the street. These are rules that enforce the values of the Torah. So every one of us can learn even from other Rebbes, even if it's not necessarily our Rebbe. The Rebbes make rules. Like, for instance, how much money to spend on a wedding. Not to throw away too much money. Then there are Rebbes, Rosh Hashivas, that support people who learn Torah. They give them money. They make phone calls and visit the world and tell Ashirim, rich people, support the yeshiva. And then when the boys they know the Gemara, they give them a check. So the Rebbes are here to guide us. But the Rebbes didn't become Rebbes by themselves. They had great mommies and great tatis. Let me give you an example. Do you know Reb Chaim Epstein was an artist? People don't know this. He was able to draw pictures of Gedolim. So one day he told his wife, we need parnasa. We have to pay our bills. maybe I should devote time and energy to make portraits of tzaddikim and we'll sell it. You know what she said to him? Go back to the Beis Medrash. We'll manage. We'll find a way to make ends meet. That's the great mommy behind, the great wife that says, no, go learn Torah. Don't worry. What a legend. Reb Moshe Feinstein. I believe he was a spark of Moshe Rabbeinu, because there are many questions in halacha and law that Moshe Rabbeinu is not here to teach us about. So Hashem had to send somebody who mastered the whole Torah, who could decide what's the correct law. Do you know in Israel this year by Shemitah, many people started planting Roman lettuce in water. But Reb Moshe said, who said you could use that for the maror? That grows from water, that doesn't grow from Hadama. And maror is supposed to be a vegetable that grows from the ground. So you need somebody who knows the Torah to teach you how to do the mitzvos. Here are the Telzer Rashi Yeshiva. These are great rabbis who had yeshivos in Europe before the Holocaust. When the Germans were coming and attacking the schools, Reb Elia Meir Bloch decided we have to rebuild Torah in a different country. He came to America, came to Cleveland, Ohio. He rebuilt the yeshiva. A gadol feels it's his obligation to build a shul, to build a study hall, a beis medrash, a place where people can learn Torah without being disturbed. These are the great leaders of our generation. They teach us what it was like in the old Jewish communities. So they help us connect to the previous generations. They teach us to make the most of our time. One time Rabbi Adis was walking to shul and he saw a man walking to the beach. On the way home from shul, the man was coming back. He said, look at that. Two people walking. One is walking for his own pleasure, for his own delight. He wants to sit on the sand and put his feet in the water. And the other one is walking, why? I want to go serve Hashem. I want to say brachos to Hashem. I want to say amen to our Kaddish. He taught us how to make the most of our time. Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld had a very simple, humble house. One time a great president came to visit him. And he commented, this is where you live? Such a humble shack? And Rabbi Sonnenfeld told him, look out my window. You see the Kosel HaMaravi? The western wall? This is what's left of God's home on this earth. If Hashem's house is not so fancy, He doesn't have the Beis HaMikdash yet, should I make my house so fancy? He taught us that simplicity is okay. You don't have to show off. Rabbi Scheinberg, he used to wear 100 talesim. He taught us, demand more from yourself. Wow. Not just to do one mitzvah, but to do many. Each Rebbe, like the Ger Rebbe, made certain rules for his community. And they make these rules, it's like almost adding on to the Torah, but it's not really adding on. It's making sure that you observe the Torah better. Rabbi Raful made a big yeshiva, but you know why? He saw that Sephardim did not have a yeshiva here in Brooklyn. They didn't have a Torah place. And one time he went and he saw an Ashkenaz yeshiva which was flourishing, and he started to cry. He said, how come some Yidden have a beautiful beis medrash, but there are parts of Klal Yisrael that don't? And after he cried, he said, I'm going to stay in America. He really wanted to move to Israel. He said, this is where I'm needed. Here's where I have to build a yeshiva and a Beis Yaakov and a Kollel. So the Rabbanim, they tried to help the Jewish people to be able to serve Hashem with peace of mind and with encouragement. Because we don't know when Mashiach is going to come and take us home. So until then, we have to try to strengthen one another. And hopefully soon, we'll have the Geula with Mashiach. A friend of mine said we have to invest in the children. They're going to be the future leaders. You know what he did? He took out a bunch of dollar bills and it was put on the desk. He said,